So, characters. We've got Bob Parr, the aging leader of a persecuted minority, Helen Parr, a depressed housewife with joint problems, Violet, every teenager ever, Dish Baby, the inspiration for Nanny 911, Dash, who lives up to his name, Mirage, who doesn't live up to her name, Frozone, Samuel L. Jackson cosplaying as a superhero, Buddy, a guy who recently discovered hairspray, and this is what literally happened in The Incredibles. Between cats stuck in trees, robberies, and suicides gone wrong, Bob Parr, aka Mr. Incredible, has a hard time getting to his wedding.
Holy smokes, I'm late.
After being ambushed for an autograph while stopping the Frenchiest of Frenchies, he crushes the dreams of his biggest fan. The 12-year-old then retaliates by ending the careers of every single superhero. The set from Office Space is temporarily relocated for Mr. Parr to work in the insurance business, saving the world one policy at a time. Back at home, Helen is so overwhelmed by postpartum depression that she often mixes up dishes and her baby, washing the child in the sink and being devastated by the cracking of plates. After being called into her son's principal's office, Helen abandons her dish baby in the car, while a Woody Allen lookalike tries to persecute a blonde youth for non-existent crimes in order to reverse the past. At dinner that night, Dash reveals to the family that Violet is in love with one of the most average Steve Jobs wannabes in the history of the world. Bob realizes his gay friend has gone missing,
Gazer beam.
as his children desperately try to kill one another. This news is quite upsetting to him, but instead of having a normal midlife crisis, Bob and Frozone go out on a rather destructive bender. When he returns home, Bob engages Helen in an act of potential child abuse, talking about the good old times when they didn't have to be responsible for their kids in front of their kids. Back at his normal people job, Bob gets let go by his boss because he, let go of his boss. He's not bored for long though, because Mirage chooses this moment to introduce him to Mission Impossible.
This message will self-destruct.
Causing Bob to regret losing his job in the home insurance business. The mission he chooses to accept is the eviction of a metal pentapus who's several months overdue on rent. Bob does manage to kick the pentapus out and totally doesn't destroy it at all.
You want me to shut it down without completely destroying it.
But Mirage is happy, so Bob is happy. When Bob returns home from his mission, he spends most of his time training. Unhappy with the color of his supersuit, Bob visits an even more androgynous Lord Farquaad to make him a new one before he heads off on his next mission for IMF. But it turns out the mission is a setup. See, Buddy went from superhero fanatic to mass murderer with extreme narcissistic tendencies over the past 15 years, highlighting the potential dangers of telling your kids no. He's turned into a supervillain whose power is making his hair defy gravity. After running away from a plastic spoon, Bob plays dead behind his gay friend's skeleton to avoid detection. He discovers that Mirage and Syndrome have been systematically killing off his friends for years in order to entertain the pentapus, and now his big brother the hexapus. In the final moments before he's captured, Bob wonders why he never had to process any of their life insurance claims. Helen finds out where Bob is through her Find My iSuit app, steals a jet, and shows off her fighter pilot moves before realizing her kid snuck on board. Doing his best impression of the Lord Jesus Christ, Bob tries to impress Syndrome by listing off his abilities.
Like breaking a toothpick.
Meanwhile, Helen, realizing how terrible of a mother she's been, chooses this moment to force her children to take swimming lessons. As Bob gives up all hope, Mirage has an impractical internal crisis concerning her murderous actions in the name of Syndrome. Helen gets, comfortable with some of Syndrome's stormtroopers before helping Mirage rescue Bob/Jesus. While sleeping in the woods, the kids get mistaken, understandably, for raccoons in spandex, and have to use their powers to escape a group of dim hunters riding in UFOs. The 10-year-old is responsible for the death of a hunter, his celebration of which reveals a serious emotional deficiency and sign of parental neglect. Dash takes after his father and carries out the Jesus metaphor until his sister manages to save them both with a giant hamster ball. The family is captured and Syndrome takes off to save the city from a danger of his own making, because the rest of the crime in the world didn't quite cut it. With the help of Mirage, the Parrs escape and borrow the National Lampoon van in order to take on the hexapus, as Violet's superpowers are revealed to be a combination of invisibility, force fields, and screaming. After a devastating loss of limb, the newly dubbed quadrupus commits suicide once it realizes no one loves it, and all the old people are Happy America's super again.
That's the way to do it.
The family returns home only to find Syndrome kidnapping Dish Baby, but as it turns out, Dish Baby has dissociative identity disorder. Thankfully, this early diagnosis will likely help the child lead a normal life. The family home is destroyed once Syndrome is eaten by his own plane, but the joke's on Bob's old boss, because now he gets to collect the insurance check. And that is what literally happened in The Incredibles.